people don't want to be sold to while they're browsing social media. Welcome to another edition of the E-Hustle, where I aim to break down one tip, trick, or story in e-commerce every week. I'm Paul Waddy, the host. Remember, if you like the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends, give it a like, subscribe, give it a comment, all that sort of stuff. It really helps. You can also follow me on socials at Paul Waddy Ecommerce on Instagram. Right, so let's get into it. Today we're going to talk about why your organic social strategy isn't working and how to fix it. So here's the first truth bomb for today, and that is that people don't want to be sold to on social media. So I'll just repeat it. People don't want to be sold to while they're browsing social media. So that sounds obvious, but I see it all the time. Brands using their Instagram, their TikTok, whatever it might be, using it like a product catalog, like an ad catalog, and it's just not meant to be. Then they start to wonder why their engagement is low, their follower count's flat, and their content isn't really landing. And so here's the reality. Social media is where people go to be entertained and informed. That's it. That's the game. Think about how you use social media. It's to pass the time. You don't really want products jammed down your throat. Now, we have advertising for that. So what I'm talking about today is organic social media. And for those that might be new to e-commerce, by organic, we mean non-paid. So free social media, in other words. So just posting on your socials. So to reiterate, we've got paid social for selling and we've got organic social for storytelling. Now, if your organic feed looks a lot like your paid ads, then you're missing the mark. So you do need two different strategies. So let's break it down. If you want to grow an engaged community on social, which by the way is a non-negotiable if you want a sustainable e-commerce brand beyond 2025, you need a content strategy. And that content strategy has to be built on what I would call social media pillars. So for those of you that are saying, well, I'm just not strong at socials, well, I've got bad news for you. You're just not going to be strong at e-commerce. So you've got to overcome this. Now, that could be either through yourself and doing founder-led content, or you might have to outsource creators. We'll talk about all of that. But developing your social media pillars is the foundation of your content. It dictates how you'll inform or entertain your audience, and every brand needs them. So let me walk you through three common ones. Now, pillar one, we've got product content. Now, if I'm honest, this is usually the worst performing pillar on organic socials. So you've seen it, the flat lay shot, the product on the white background, maybe a little lifestyle photo, and generally it gets crickets. It doesn't perform so well. That's because, once again, people aren't on socials to shop. If they want to buy, they'll click through your ad, your email, your website, your Google ads, and so on. But they're just there to be entertained or informed. Now, that doesn't mean that you never, ever post product content, but you do need to be strategic about it. So you should be thinking about posting product-related content less frequently, or bake it into other more engaging formats, which we'll talk about. Now, the second pillar we're going to talk about on socials is education. Now, this is my personal favorite, and it's what I use on my socials 90% of the time. So my approach is give and they shall follow. So if you can position yourself or your brand as an authority in your space, then people will follow you for that. And so what I find is that if you give away free education, and that's what my Instagram bio says, free e-com tips for entrepreneurs, it will pay you back further down the track. You don't always need to be selling. So under education, what we're talking about is being the authority on something, so e-commerce or skincare or whatever, or it could be commenting on trends. So you might sell a product that is particularly topical, it might be sustainable and so on, and you position yourself as somebody who follows or who's a good follow for environmentally friendly consumers. You might be selling gadgets, but instead of always just trying to sell the gadgets on socials, you might position your social media pillar as someone who educates on the coolest gadgets that you've seen around the world and how people can do DIY hacks at home. So that's your education pillar. Now, let's look at a few killer examples. I think GoPro posts really nice content, right? So they post stunning user-generated content. Then they use the caption to share camera tips. So the education meets product. If you look at Lowe's, which is the home improvement giant in the US, they share quick DIY hacks that help customers solve real problems. That's the DIY angle that I was talking about earlier. If you look at computers, even Intel has started to show how AI is being used to help farmers in India. So there's storytelling with a purpose. So those three massive brands are using socials to be a good follow. And that's your job on socials, just to be a good follow. And these guys are using it, using the education pillar. So educate, add value, and then the followers and sales will ultimately come. And that's definitely what I've found in my experience. One of the other pillars you can incorporate into your weekly marketing calendar is BTS, or behind the scenes. Why? Because people are nosy. That's why Big Brother exists. That's why Gogglebox exists. That's why reality TV works. So if you're ever wondering, and I say this all the time, but if you're ever wondering whether or not people will be interested in your behind the scenes content or founder content, just remember that Gogglebox is a TV show that actually exists. A great example, I think, is Represent Clo out of the UK. They turned their BTS content into an amazing documentary series on YouTube. You should go and check it out. Well worth the views, quite inspiring. Now, initially, it wasn't polished, it wasn't perfect, but it was real and it built serious brand equity and a really good amount of followers. I think domestically in Australia, one of my clients, G'd Up, they do this really, really well, both on their Instagram and TikTok. But on Instagram, they might post a photo from a meeting, a casual shot, the team having a coffee meeting, but in the background was a brand new shoe prototype. So they're sneaking the product into the meeting. And what happened? Boom, the comments lit up, the followers asked questions, and that's really organic gold. Domestically, I think Fate the Label do this fantastically well, again, particularly using behind the scenes content on YouTube, which is a massive platform, and they've sort of become renowned for it. Here we are talking about their founder content or their behind the scenes content, which is really, really good. Jane Liu, of course, at Showpo is also fantastic at that and has been for a long time. So here's how I do it personally. Like I said earlier, 90% of my content is free e-commerce tips, but maybe 10% mentions a service or a product that I offer. If that, it'll definitely be no more than 10%. I will never, ever use organic socials to sell. I use them to educate. I want to be a good follow. I don't want to sell. So if you just think about that, is your brand a good follow? That's really what you should be asking yourself. Would you follow it? Now, there are different pillars that you can have in your business. You could have 1, 2, or 3. If you look at humor as a pillar, which is used by one of my clients, Budgie Smuggler, I also think that Nike Hammocks use this pillar really, really well, which is to say, we're going to use humor to be a good follow. We're going to do pranks. We're going to do funny skits. We're going to do great content that makes people laugh. And as a result, people share that content. Now, there's no question at all that that humorous approach to organic socials has helped Budgie Smuggler grow their social community and probably contributes to why they have so many followers, which then leads to them spending less than 10% of their revenue on paid media. They don't have to because they have a really engaged following. And the same goes for Nike Hammocks, who I think make fantastic content. So it's not necessarily about you doing these 3 or 4 pillars that I've mentioned. It's about you developing them yourself. So if I were you, what I would be doing is thinking, what are 1, 2, or 3 pillars that I'm really good at? And product's probably going to be one of them. You do need to have a bit of product in 10% of the time, I would say. But what else could you be? Are you selling leather goods? Could you be the leather mythbuster that goes behind the scenes of some of the world's biggest factories and finds out what suppliers are in there? Are you in fashion? Could you be an expert in your craft where you take people along the journey of building your fashion business? Are you an ethically sourced, sustainable brand? Could you go and visit some of the B Corps around the world and take people on a vlog through the B Corps around the world? You've got to really think about what you can do. So if you're selling jewelry, it's not enough just to post jewelry images on your organic socials. Now, if you're selling jewelry that's made for, the beach or vacationing, absolutely one of your social media pillars could be aspirational beach holidays, and you could incorporate that into your social media strategy each week. So it's really about, I guess, step 1, defining how you're going to be a good follow. So ask yourself that. Am I a good follow? It really starts there, right? And your numbers will tell you if engagement's low and you don't really grow your followers except when you run ads, you're not a good follow, right? So how can I be a better follow? Start thinking about those pillars and just remember, let's keep it really simple. People use social media to be informed and educated. primarily. Think about how you use it. You're passing the time. You're scrolling, the doom scroll. You're not stopping researching a pair of shoes. No, ads will do that, and ads have usually less than 2% click-through rate. People aren't really using social media for that. So how are we going to stop the scroll? Let's find what we're really strong at. If it's not founder content, maybe don't do founder content, right? You don't have to do founder content, but if you're a bit of an extrovert, you're good in front of the camera, definitely you should be thinking about founder content and just getting in there. If you're selling something that solves a problem, don't try and sell the product on socials. Try and talk about the problem and how other people are solving that problem. Interview specialists in your field. If you're selling, hair regrowth products, don't just flog the product. Maybe offer some tips on advice on what you can eat better to regrow hair. What's good for healthy hair. Again, position yourself as an authority in that space. Now, if you're in women's fashion, maybe education won't be a pillar, but maybe humor will be. Maybe you could be a trend spotter and your socials are dedicated towards taking people across the world to spot trends as quickly as possible. Maybe you're targeting 16 and 17-year-olds and they like puppies and kittens and whatever. If that gets the algorithm going, that's fantastic, right? You've really got to think about what pillars in your social media strategy your followers are going to resonate with. And above all, your socials have to be relatable. Maybe aspirational to an extent, but for the majority of the time, I do think they have to be relatable in some format. So it's okay to be aspirational, particularly if you're selling high-end products and so on, but somewhat relatable, particularly if you're going to do founder-led content. Anyway, it doesn't matter which pillars you choose necessarily, or which ones I think you should choose. What I'm saying is you should have some social media pillars. You need to work on being a good follow, not flogging products all day, every day through your organic socials. If your organic socials look the same as your paid socials, you have a problem there. So really think about where you're strong. What are the pillars that you can lean into? If you're selling gym gear, could you post workout tips? You get the drift. If you're selling e-commerce programs, could you give free e-commerce tips? That's what works. So really, let's stop selling on our organic socials. Let's work on 2 or 3 pillars. Once we've got those 2 or 3 pillars, let's put them into our marketing calendar for the week and start testing and be consistent. Really, we should be posting every day, if not more, on TikTok. So let's start testing that content and see what resonates with people. Until next week, happy social posting. See you on the other side. Bye for now.